have accepted. We're working on getting Jean-Paul Cousin to agree to come as well. And then I know Mr. Gaines is the chairman of the Democratic Party, and in October we will have the chairman of the Republican Party as well speaking. So Mr. Randal Gaines is a LaPlace attorney who has served in the Louisiana House of Representatives from 2011 to 2023. He was previously an assistant city attorney for New Orleans and a professor of criminal justice at Southern. This year he was elected to chair the Louisiana Democratic Party. So Mr. Gaines, please come up.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I did ask my executive director before I came whether or not it was a talk off the record, but obviously not, as I see the cameras. So I'm really thrilled to have an opportunity to talk to the press, and the reason is because my entire time in the legislature, I watched the work that you do. You have created a rare climate of objectivity and unbiased reporting that I haven't seen in any venues that I've traveled to, and I really appreciate your work. I had an opportunity to do at least like 4 or 5 op-eds that were published with the Advocate and Time-Picayune, and I appreciate that more than anything, because sometimes our voice is what it takes to make the difference, and sometimes it's the only thing that will make a difference. And you've given me an opportunity to do that, and I can't say how much I appreciate it. So I left the legislature in January after serving for 3 terms, my last 4 years, and I navigated myself into a more peaceful, quiet existence. And I was recruited to come back in, back on the playing field to lead the party, to put the effort into turning this party around. We're well on our way of doing that. I'm optimistic. I was asked by many people, was confident, and I said that's a good place to start. And it reminds me of, I'm proud military. That's why I had such a good relationship with John Bell, our former governor. But it reminds me of a Marine Corps general by the name of Chesty Pullard. If any of you may have heard of him, he was really a heroic figure for the military. 5-time Navy Cross awardee for heroism. He fought in World War II, served in Korea, and was just an outstanding leader, West Point graduate. And they asked him, when he was in Korea on the battlefield, in the Battle of Chasson Reservoir in 1950, they interviewed him by radio. Well, he was in a pretty tough situation. He was in a very vulnerable position because he was surrounded. So he told his men, he said, look, he said, we are surrounded. Enemies at our rear, the enemies at our front, the enemies at our left and right. He said, we are completely surrounded by the opposing force. He said, so we've been looking for them for quite some time now, and we got them just where we want them. So, that's kind of where I see our party. And the reason is this. We've witnessed a really push to the far right of extreme policies that I don't think is in the best interest. They aren't in the best interest of the state or our citizens. And when you're talking about the attack on reproductive rights, you're talking about the proliferation of guns, making our society much more lethal. Bills that are going to reverse the justice reform that was created by a joint bipartisan effort, because I was a part of that. And to reverse those, I think, really sets the state back, because we were able to move away from having the highest incarceration rate, not just in the country, in the world. And we were able to avert that. We moved down, not far down, but we were on our way to bettering our position and our standing in terms of criminal justice. And to reverse that, I think, really it harms the state. It harms the interests of our citizens. It costs the state. It's a burden on the state's budget. And I think that it's counterproductive. And to see those things roll back was really, really disappointing. And that's one of the things several of the things actually, that the party is going to attack and going to advocate, particularly the relaxed gun laws. Our state, the homicide rate for this nation is 20 times the rate of any major country in the world. I don't think putting more guns on the street is going to do us a great service. So these are some of the things that I feel very strongly about. I think that we're going to prioritize our efforts into making sure that we elect good Democrats in office, because I do feel that the Democratic Party provides a pathway for hope, provides a pathway for equity, for justice, for unity, and it provides a pathway for progress for our state. I believe we have the best ideas, the best solution, and the best leaders for the best results for Louisiana. We don't endeavor to pass laws or push laws that simply will get us elected. We try to fight for laws that's going to be a benefit to the people. And one of the things that we are doing now is forging, creating messaging that adapts and caters to the needs of our citizens at their doorstep. Not the ideas that we think are great, but addressing needs that are great needs for the people that we serve. And one of the most important things we're going to do is we're going to go back to the basics. We're going to go back to the communities. We have something called DPEX, the Parish Executive Committee. We have 64 of those around the state. And they're going to be our ears, arms, legs, and minds in many ways in the local parishes. What we want to do is we want to establish a network of leadership throughout the state that's responsive to the needs of those people in the local communities. Not just from the top, leadership from the top at the Capitol. We want to do decentralized leadership. We're going back to the basics. We're going back to the local communities. We're going back to the doorsteps, to the door knocking, to the town hall meetings, to the local parish meetings, just to find out what are the needs of the people that we serve. What are the needs of the citizens of Louisiana? Not just to promote laws that are good sound bites and cater to people's fears, cater to resentment. We want to promote laws that cater to hope and cater to opportunity and the needs of our citizens. So we're going back to citizen level leadership, and that's one of the big parts of our agenda. I did a statewide tour maybe about 3 weeks ago, and had an opportunity to talk to people around the state. We did Lake Charles, Lafayette, Opelousas, St. Mary Parish, and surprisingly, the enthusiasm is at an all-time high, and it actually was at an all-time high prior to Kamala Harris becoming the presumptive nominee, which at that point took it to the roof. We had, normally the party would get, I would say, 15 to 20 people at town hall meetings when we would do those across the state. Every meeting that I walk into, from Shreveport to Lake Charles to Opelousas, there were at least 60 or 70 people in the room, very excited about the new leadership. Diverse crowd. It was a mixture of white, black, very diverse, and these people are eager to one, revitalize the party, but two, to redirect the misdirection that we feel the state is going under the current Republican leadership. And they were very interested in working to hands-on to make that difference. And of course, when Kamala Harris was named the presumptive nominee, the enthusiasm, of course, went through the roof. And we're going to use that enthusiasm to help to continue to elevate the party and to help to build and strengthen our base across the state. One of the things that was interesting that occurred is that maybe about 2 weeks after I was elected, we had a new leadership that was elected around the state. Stacey Abrams' team contacted us and asked asked to join, partner with Louisiana, and revitalize the Democratic Party because they see the opportunity here and they see the potential that we have to ultimately turn this state blue, at least create a stronger Democratic base to cater more to the rights of citizens as opposed to the national Republican agenda, which we feel is harmful to the state, as opposed to just to cater to corporations and big business, just to really to make a difference for our citizens. So they are partnering with us, and we have collaborated on the policies and the initiatives that we feel that's going to help us to advance our cause. So I'll tell you about some of the things that we're planning. The goal is this: to rebuild a party in a way that we can shape the direction of the state. And we're going to do that, as I said, by going back to the basics, going back to the local communities, and getting our DPECs involved. And what we want to do with our local leaders, our local Democratic leaders in the East Parish, we want to move beyond the political dynamics. We want to move outside the political arena. We want to extend our footprints beyond politics. And the reason why we want to do that is because, one, we're in a minority as Democrats. We're coming from behind. And when you're coming from behind, you have to do more work, try harder, and give better leadership. And the plan is to have our local Democratic leaders, which are comprised in the DPECs, to become liaisons between the citizens of these parishes, the citizens of our small towns, and the local officials. We want them to address the needs of every parish around the state in a more direct way. We don't want to just make promises. We want to make a difference. We want to address the needs of those citizens in a way that they can see the impact. So our goal is to have our DPECs interface with the communities around the state, small communities, because the rural areas have been overlooked, and really get in and get involved in their day-to-day needs. And not just during the election cycle. We want to do this 24/7, 365 days a year. We want to get involved on the needs of these communities, make a difference for these communities, provide solutions for these communities on a day-to-day basis, well beyond election cycles and well outside the political dynamic. We want to get involved to the level of being community leaders and community benefit, community development. If the community needs projects, we'll help them to identify the resources and subject matter experts that can make those projects a reality. That's one of our goals. The other goal is to go back to build a bench. Our plan is to go to the local communities, recruit local leaders. We're going to start winning local elections. We can't walk up. If a statewide election was next month, in 6 months, it would be very difficult to elect a Democratic statewide leader. Possible, but difficult. So our plan is to start recruiting local leaders to run for local elections to rebuild the bench. We have to go all the way back and start over. And we're going to do that in a very profound way and a very proactive way. Another aspect of our plan is youth leadership. Someone told me that, a Democratic leader told me that they were having, before I became chair, they were having a hard time identifying candidates. I said, well, have you tried the colleges? Have you tried the local communities? I said, there are leaders all over the state, particularly on the college campuses. Many of them have ran for office on a college campus. It's an untapped pool of talent that we are going to address, and we're going to give them opportunities to become leaders in Louisiana. And to do that, we're going to train them, not just train them to run for office. We're going to train them to be leaders, train them to make a difference, train them to be public servants. So there's a whole pool of young, talented individuals across the state on college campuses and small towns who are vying to make a difference in their communities, and we're going to interface with them. We're going to go back and tap into that, what I consider to be an untapped pool of talent around the state, which are young people who are trying to get involved, have a desire to get involved, but haven't been given opportunity to do so. We're going to craft messaging that address the individual needs of our citizens, that reach them at their doorstep, that touch and react to and respond to the things that are most important to them, the things that they value most. And our goal is to do is to convey compelling and appealing messages 24/7, 365 days a year. As I said, not just during the election cycle. Another goal of our party is to reach out to the marginalized communities, those communities that have been overlooked, those communities that have not been engaged, whether it's by ethnic diversity, whether it's by location, geographical location. We're identifying all those communities that really have not been addressed, and neither party has effectively engaged them, and got them involved, listened to their needs, and neither party has fought to make a difference for those communities. And our goal is to show them why they matter, and that's really going to help us to expand our base. And we're going to change our messaging from those messages that really were not effective in winning the elections. We're not going to replay the old playbook. We're going to create an entirely new playbook with messages that are geared to the individual needs of our citizens, not to the ideas that we have in our head that we think are important, but what they value as important. And most importantly, we're going to ask and convince our citizens by messaging, by what we do, the work we do, by leading by example, by making a difference. We're going to convince them to vote Democrat. And we're going to show them by voting Democrat, not only will we be able to reverse and to abate the harmful, extreme right-wing policies that's been advocated and advanced by our current Republican administration. We're going to show them why voting Democrat is going to make a difference for them in terms of, particularly for women, their reproductive health needs, make a difference in terms of the right to vote, make a difference in terms of raising higher wages and provide a livable wage, make a difference in terms of passing more comprehensive, effective gun laws to make our society and our communities more safe. And I mentioned voting, and this is a really important issue because the current Republican administration just passed initiated an executive order that really makes it more difficult to register to vote, make it more difficult for the elderly to vote by putting in what I consider obstructive requirements, delaying red tape, and that's not what democracy is all about. Democracy is never effective if the principles that build our democracy and the principles that form the foundation of our democracy are diminished. When you try to make it more difficult for all the things that make our democracy work, you make the process more difficult to engage in voting. That's contrary to the interests of democracy, and you can't have diminished principles that form the foundation for democracy and expect democracy to succeed. It's like justice. You can't have partial justice. Either you have total justice or none at all. So our goal would be to fight to pass laws that make it easy to vote, make it easy to register to vote, make it easier to cast your vote. When I was in the legislature, I attempted to pass a bill that would register every citizen automatically when you apply for your driver's license. Of course, it was opposed by the Republican legislature, but we did fight for that. I was successful in passing a bill that was advocated by the LSU Student Government Association, which allows college students to use their college IDs to vote. And it wasn't about just making it easier for them to vote. It was about letting them know that we care about them in terms of them participating in the voting and election process, that we value them, we value their voice, we value their positions, and we value the things that are most valuable to them. Just to let them know that, look, you're important. We want you a part of this process. And of course, the earlier an individual votes, the younger they vote, the more likely they are to become chronic voters. And that bill passed. President at the time, LSU President King Alexander King testified in favor of the bill, and we were able to get that bill passed. But we need more. We need more efforts, stronger efforts to make sure that voting rights are protected. In 2021, there were 32 states that passed 19 laws that made it more difficult to vote, that obstructed voting rights, that suppressed the vote. And most of the voting laws that suppressed the votes were targeted toward Democratic voters. And that's not the goal of a democracy that wants to succeed. You can't make it difficult to participate in a process that sustains the most important system of government that in the world, which is the democracy that we have in America. So we're going to fight to make sure that the voting rights in Louisiana are protected, and support our congressmen to make sure that they fight in Washington to advance and extend the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which is now tied up by filibuster in Congress. So those are some of the things that we're pushing to make sure that our Democratic Party can emerge to, as I said, to redirect what we feel to be the misdirection of Louisiana. And I'll take any questions that you may have.
Randall, so I was looking at the voter registration rates compared to 2020, and we're not seeing as many people signing up to vote, and we've seen a lot of people switch from Democratic to Republican Party affiliation. So how are the Dems looking to try to address that for this election?
Oh, well, absolutely. We intend to extend our outreach to different communities to make sure that we understand what their needs are. If someone changes parties, obviously they feel that that party is not aligned with their values. That party is not aligned with the needs that they may have. So that's a very important part of our objectives, to make sure that we reach out to the community. And we won't know unless we engage those communities. So we have a network of volunteers. As I said, we have the DPECs that are having town hall meetings, going to these communities and listening sessions just to learn what's important to them. And we're going to tailor our messaging and our actions to respond to those needs. And we're not going to, I believe in leading from the front. We will never, which I've seen done in many cases by our opposing party, to push issues just that play on the individual's fears or a sense of resentment to drive the voter turnout. We're going to address and we're going to propose real issues that produce real results for people in a positive way. As I said, I believe in leading from the front to make sure that and there are issues that the communities are wrestling with because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding. Because many times I've seen bills passed by our legislature to address issues and advance policies that the public really didn't understand, and they were posed in a way, kind of misdirected way, misleading way, to where the bill, as it's posed, purportedly did one thing, but in action it did something totally different. So I think it's important for us to really educate our voters, to let them know that this is what these laws do, this is what they do, this is the impact it's going to have on your communities, and this is why you should or shouldn't vote for this. As in the new gun laws that have been passed, that people have been led to believe that makes your community more safe. Well, it actually doesn't. We're going to address the public in a way that we explain to them not only why these laws are not the best laws to be advocated or be advanced, but we're going to talk to them about the consequences of those laws when they have been passed in other states. So we're going to show the consequences of harmful laws, which I think is going to really enlighten people on a level that they haven't been before. But no, and to answer your question, yeah, our goal is to re-attract those who have left the party, but more importantly, to to attract the younger voters, 18 to 35, who are looking for a place that's going to provide an answer to the things that are important to them.
Wes Muller from Louisiana Illuminator. What would you say are the top 3 issues in Louisiana for the upcoming legislative session?
Well, I believe that tax reform is something that's going to be addressed in the upcoming session, which we haven't done a good job of. I think that we need to revise our tax code. It's been talked about for the last 10 years, as I recall, and we haven't really effectively made any drastic changes. Inventory tax, income tax. So I do think that the revision of the tax code is going to be addressed, but it shouldn't be addressed in a way that it diminishes our ability to raise revenues, because that's what happened during the agenda years in terms of the tax cuts, the corporate incentives, the Senate that really doesn't do anything for Louisiana, individual tax cuts. That sounds great. Revenue neutral type policies, putting the state in a revenue neutral position where we actually were in the revenue reverse, which is what caused the deficit, the $2 billion deficit in 2016, 17, and 18. So if we do, I think we're going to ultimately have to do tax reform because we have a very complicated and convoluted tax code. I think we're going to ultimately do that, but not to do it in a way that it decreases the state's ability to raise needed revenues, because this idea of revenue neutral was never intended to apply to the states. It was something that the National Republican Party devised as in their messaging to attract voters. But states cannot afford to restrict their ability to raise revenue, whether it's by individual taxes or corporate taxes. But I do think that that's going to be a high priority on it.
Emphasizing registration of voters and actually casting votes has been really good. But now it seems like the focus is coming on counting the votes. As the governor or anybody in the Republican Party started talking about trying to change up anything with our actual counting of votes?
Well, I haven't seen or heard anything specifically in terms of them changing the method of counting votes, but I do anticipate that that's going to happen, because what's going on around the country is that there's been an attempt to roll back voting rights that started 10 years from the striking down and the Shelby versus Holder of the Voting Rights Act in 2013. And it's really gradually become more and more aggressive. And I'll say this, that from what I've noticed that, and actually more than what I've noticed from my research, that the Republican Party has taken the position based on the research that the more people vote, the higher the Democratic vote will be. The more people that vote in this country, the higher the turnout rate for Democrats will be. So of course they have initiated a subversive effort to make it more restrictive to vote, so to make it more difficult to vote. So in reference to the counting issue, I hadn't heard that, but I anticipate that may very well occur, because the executive order really places restrictions and makes it more difficult to register people to vote, adds another layer of red tape, and it makes it more difficult for the elderly to vote, where you can only have one individual at a time to fill out the paperwork for absentee voting. You can only do one individual unless it's a family member. I mean, saying that an individual, whether it's a nursing home attendee or whether it's an organization, you can only assist one person in filling out an absentee ballot. That's like saying to the first responder, you can only save one person, or you can only save one person at a time. I mean, it doesn't have any productive or constructive purpose at all. It's really just, it's not constructive, it's obstructive.
Regarding the East Baton Rouge mayor's race, which two candidates do you think will be in the running?
Oh, wow. I think you have my former colleague, Ted James, who's in the race, and you have another former colleague, Sharon Broom, who's also in the race, is currently mayor. From what and the party, of course, is not going to take a position on that race, other than the fact that we want as many people to come out and vote in that race as possible. So we're going to push the voter turnout, not necessarily turnout aligned to any particular candidate. But I think they are both great candidates that have an opportunity to win the election and ultimately lead the city of Baton Rouge. I think both of them are quite capable of doing so, and I've worked with both of them. I'm confident that each one of them have the requisite talent and ability to continue to make a difference in Baton Rouge. But as for a prediction, I dare not make one.
Did the Louisiana Democratic Party endorse one or the other?
We did not. We don't typically endorse in the mayor's races. So nor did they ask for it. Our bylaws specifically address the governor statewide races. Now we can of course change our bylaws to extend it to some of the local races, the mayor's races, but we haven't seen a need to do so at this point, particularly due to the fact that many of the cities in Louisiana have Democratic mayors. So it hasn't been to our benefit, to all our interests, to really start to delve into those races, because we just want to make sure that a strong Democrat gets elected.
Randall. Hi, Brooke Norrington with WRKF. What were your thoughts on party primaries being pushed? And it's one of the first things that Governor Landry wanted to do, of changing up where you have to be registered with a party to vote in a primary.
We oppose that. I oppose it particularly due to the fact that that primary system will really make our political system more polarized. It takes away the influence or the ability of individuals who are not in the majority party in that particular area to really play a role in deciding on who actually gets into the race and who actually gets into the runoff. So I think it creates a more polarized system, and it creates an environment, a political climate, where people with extreme views, whether it's Republican or Democrat, can get elected. So I don't support that at all. The party doesn't support it, and I don't think it's in the best interest of our state on any level.
What are your thoughts on the 6th congressional district?
That is a very important district for us. That particular race, both congressional races are really important. That 6th district is our priority. We are working now to develop a plan and put it into place that's going to drive the turnout in that particular district. The 6th district is the culmination and the result of a 150-year cause that's been fought for, advocated for since minorities were given the right to vote in 1870. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on that race, and we're putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that we win in large numbers. It gives us another Democrat in Congress to fight for some of the things that I think are going to be critically important for the future of the country in Washington. So it gives us another voice. We've only had one Democratic congressman for forever, and it gives us a second Democrat to be able to aid the congressional delegation, our Democratic congressional delegation in Congress, and to aid who I believe will be the future president, the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. So I think it's important for us to add that seat, successfully add that seat, and hopefully ultimately to be able to elect a Democratic Speaker of the House.
Mr. Gaines?
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Liam Combs, WAFB. You talked about having an impact to not empty promises on issues like reproductive rights, gun control, voting rights, and raising the minimum wage. Obviously, you'd be facing a Republican supermajority. What specific plan do you have sort of across the aisle on these issues?
Well, as I said earlier, if you don't have to vote, you have to voice. And our goal is to raise our voice, to highlight the importance of these issues, to talk about the harm of that's going to result from not from allowing some of the very extreme laws that have in many ways attacked the rights of women, the voting rights, and the workers' rights, to try to dismantle unions, to make it more difficult for workers to earn a higher wage, make it more difficult for workers to work under safe conditions. So those are the type of things that are at risk, are under attack, and we're going to raise our voice against those. And the purpose of raising our voice is to be able to inspire citizens of Louisiana, to not just inspire, to educate them on how important these issues are. And ultimately, it's going to allow us to elect leaders, Democratic leaders, who are willing to take a stand on those issues, raise their voice on those issues, fight for those issues, elect them to the legislature, and to overcome and to reverse the supermajority that was created in the last election. The Republican in 2019, I think I was Black Caucus chair at the time, and I served as Black Caucus chair and caucus chair because Robert Johnson was running for the Senate, and he was the caucus chair, so I kind of filled in for him. And the Republicans, in many of the newspapers, The Advocate, and some of the other papers, advocated and promised that they would deliver a supermajority. We were able to block that in 2019 because we had good leadership. We raised the necessary revenues to get good people elected. Unfortunately, we weren't able to block it in 2023, but I do anticipate ultimately that the Democratic Party will advance initiatives, will enable the election of Democrats to the State House that's going to reverse that supermajority, and I think that's absolutely necessary because right now the guardrails are off. There's no parameters. There's no parameters in place. There are no guards in place to stop extreme policy from being passed, and the only way we're going to stop that is to reverse the supermajority by electing more Democrats.
As far as working across the aisle, do you have any plans to do so?
I'm sorry?
As far as working across the aisle with Republicans, do you have any plans to do so?
I am so glad you asked that. That's one of the things I want to talk about, and that is critical. I was able to do that when I was in the legislature. I did many of the bills that were passed, which were justice reform, the bill that reversed the last Jim Crow law that was on Louisiana law books, which was the non-unanimous jury verdict. Those were all done through bipartisan efforts. And I stood on the floor of the legislature and I advocated to my colleagues. I said, look, they're not going to, when you leave here, the public, your family, your friends, leaders, they're not going to ask you what you argued about while you were there. They're not going to ask you what battles that you fought. They're going to ask you, what did you achieve together? What did you accomplish? What was passed? You know, they can care less about what you fought, what you argued about. They just want to know what you delivered. And the reason why I'm glad you asked that, because I had that in my notes to talk about. One of the things we want to do with our engagement profiling of candidates, because we want to profile great candidates. We want to profile exciting candidates. We want to profile candidates with integrity to run for office, but we want to profile candidates who are willing to cross the aisles. Louisiana has become, as in Washington, has become too polarized in terms of our ideologies, and we're not going to accomplish anything through polarized, disconnected, disjointed vision. We're going to have to unite and come together on things that matter most and on things we can agree on. We're not going to agree on everything, but we certainly can advocate for and pass the laws that we can agree on. And what happens with a polarized legislative body, and what happens when extreme policies are passed, it makes it more difficult to form those type of coalitions because everybody retreats to their neutral corner, and then the distrust arises because of extreme laws that may have been passed that are so very harmful to the other side that there's no longer an inclination to work with the other side. So it's really important to curtail or to avoid taking extreme positions, passing extreme laws that harm in many ways that cause a lot of harm to a large portion of our society, without regard for the consequences that it's going to have on those people that some of our citizens. Because the more extreme we become, the more polarized we become, the less effective we are. So it's really important for us to be able to come together and to agree on the things that we think is going to benefit the state, not the things that's going to benefit our party or not what's going to benefit one party or other, but what's going to benefit the citizens. And what I would propose to our elected officials is that every year prior to the legislative session, the leaders, the Republican and Democratic leaders, meet and decide on what laws that we can pass together, as opposed to going in a free fall. I think it's really important for us to prioritize bipartisanship if we're going to ever take Louisiana to the next level.
Thank you, sir.
Because you now are the chairman of the Democratic Party, and because you used to be as the legislator head of the Black Caucus and all that, and because I learned today that next week's speaker will be the Republican who holds the same position that you do. I had a change of plan, and the only question that I want to ask you right now, because I want to wait to hear what he says as well, is do you think, in light of the fact that you're saying we need to cross aisles and work on something that we need to do to move our state forward, do you think your answer would be the same as his with regard to whether we can really trust legislators who won't do anything at all about Louisiana Revised Statute 3051? And to that end, the only thing that I want to ask you is whether you will keep a promise to take a picture of me both with and without my whistle when you're finished, or spin the wheel if your answer is different from his.
I'll take a picture with you if you support my ideas, and even if you oppose my ideas, I'll take a picture with you. And the reason being is because if you do oppose them, then we'll find a common ground somehow to make sure that I understand what your best needs are. But as far as whether or not my Republican counterpart will take this position, I hope he will, because if he cares anything about this state, then I think bipartisanship should be the first priority as opposed to political polarization.
Randal, do you believe that the excitement around Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket now can translate to the down ballot races that we have that have Democrats in them this year in Louisiana?
Oh, it already has. Yeah, the support and enthusiasm that Kamala Harris brought to this political climate in Louisiana has been incredible. It's been through the roof. I'm getting calls from groups, political groups, non-political groups, ordinary citizens from all over the state who have called and said, hey, how can I help? How can I help get Kamala Harris elected? How can I help make a difference? And in the same conversation, because she's a Democrat, and they've asked, how can we help the Democratic Party? The voter registration since July 1st has been uniquely, has shown a drastic increase in women voters. Matter of fact, from July 1st until now, I'm going to tell about last week, the women registration, voter registration has exceeded the men's registration by 64 to 36%. I think 5,200 women have registered, and only about 3,500 men have registered. So I would think that it's showing the results of her candidates. It's showing the results of the increased level of enthusiasm, excitement has been demonstrated by the voter registration, and women can relate to her message. So I think not only the fact that she's a Democrat has helped generate enthusiasm for the party and really is going to help us expand our base, but the fact that she's a woman that can identify with the things that matter most to women, which is reproductive health and a woman's right to choose, and to reestablish the protections that were provided by Roe versus Wade. So it's really shown them a remarkable difference in terms of encouraging women to participate in the political process, which I think is a good sign.
Question, very good question. Thank you, Brooks Gaines. Thank you for your service on Council Stanley with the Louisiana Council of Catholic Bishops.
I'm sorry, could you
Council Stanley with the Louisiana Council of Catholic Bishops.
oh, yes.
So, poverty. Louisiana ranks 49th in poverty, pretty close to that child poverty. Do you think the strategy of going to local communities will poverty be an issue that's going to surface? We have the highest percentage of people on minimum wage in the United States. 30% are women with children. That's a pro-life issue for us. Do you think we passed 2 sessions ago a statute to demand the state address poverty that's been challenged? So, my fundamental question is, will the issue of poverty and strategies to address it be coming forth from your strategy?
That's a very high priority of the party, addressing Louisiana's high poverty rate. Because if you don't fix the home, if you don't fix the families, you won't fix the public schools. It's going to be difficult to fix crime. We have to really promote policies that will enhance the quality of life and opportunities, particular opportunity for a livable wage for our citizens, because most of the social ills and social deviancy evolves from poverty. So, by pushing laws that increase jail time, longest prison sentences, you're reacting to the symptoms as opposed to developing constructive policies that's going to address the cause. So yeah, poverty is a big priority for us, and one of the things that you mentioned about the local communities, that's exactly why we're going to local communities, not just to talk about to address the things that they feel, the infrastructure needs they have, but also address employment needs, business development, business opportunities in those communities. I think if we can fix our rural communities, we can start the state on a positive trajectory in terms of getting us off of the bad list, lasting education, second to last education, lasting poverty, lasting opportunities. I think if we can do that, we're putting ourselves on the right track and a path for progress, and which will attract more people to Louisiana, which will attract businesses to Louisiana. So, we have to start addressing the social ills as opposed to corporate interests, as opposed to fighting crime with longer jail sentences. I mean, if we don't address the cause, we'll never solve the problems that result from the lack of financial resources. So that's a very high priority for us. And I off the record, well, I can't say off the record, the press. I work with Dr. Gaines, Dr. Martin Luther King's organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I serve as vice chair of the national board in Atlanta. And the gentleman who serves as my chairman is Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who Dr. Martin Luther King actually appointed as the national director for his Poor People campaigns in 1968. So Dr. Lafayette was actually appointed to Dr. King's last major movement before he was assassinated. So I just talked to him a couple of days ago, and we talk about that often in terms of addressing poverty. So I think you can think that I'm very inclined to address the poverty issue. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Gaines, that's all our time.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.